Hello and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. Today I am so excited to have Amanda Thebe back on my podcast today. She's been through the mindfuck that happens in the stages where it's just like, what's happening to me? Are these symptoms normal? Is it this? Is it that? And then going through all the waves that, okay, so menopause, perimenopause doesn't stop you making progress. It doesn't do anything in that kind of sense of things, but to discount the emotional impact, to discount the mental impact, kind of foolish, because it's those things that lead to the indirect causes of you struggling with you getting whatever goal it is. And it doesn't just affect your physical goals. This can show up at work with brain fog, with your relationships. You might think there is something wrong with you, but no, there isn't. The lack of motivation. Yes, it is not your hormones. Yes, it is not your emotions or any of that kind of stuff, but those emotions and those hormones play into the way that you experience life. So with that, Amanda, can you give just a brief little spiel on how you relate to this, how you speak on this, what your passion is with this, and why do some women experience weight gain during menopause despite not changing their diet or exercise?
Hey, so thanks for having me on again, Ruby. So, it's really interesting because that's a lot for me to comment on. But if we sort of even just talk about how complex menopause impacts women, it's not the same for everyone. And so backtracking a little bit, we know we have progesterone and estrogen receptors all over the body. So almost every system in the body is impacted by it. And so we have women that have physical symptoms, neurological symptoms, psychological, you said like not recognizing themselves, lesser than before, but they can't put their finger on it. And then they might have the emotional component too. I mean, I think that it's everything. It's this, it's a really complex thing to explain. But what we do know, because these receptors are all over the body, is that, your experience, I know you're only 30, but like my experience compared to another woman's experience might be completely different, even though we're going through the same phase of our lives. And so like trying to sort of like relate that then to like, how do they deal with their changing body? How do they change with the fact that their body is actually changing shape? They feel like everything they're doing isn't working. Nothing's changed, but they're putting weight on. I would like sort of peel back all the onions of that and say, let's look at what we know, right? So we do know that nutrition science is a science and it isn't made up. And when people say calories in and calories out, it can feel really triggering to a lot of people. And it's a very simple expression to talk about something that's not simple, right? Calories in, calories out is really complex too. And so we understand that energy balance is the foundation of like how we fuel our body, and energy is measured in calories, as you know, right? So if you're in an energy deficit, meaning you haven't eaten as many calories, then your body will start to burn some of the fat and you will start to lose weight. And on the flip side of that, if you're in an energy surplus, if you're not using as many calories as you're eating, if you're in this surplus, then your body will store it because it doesn't know what else to do with it. And that sounds like a little bit of a flippant way to talk about it when you think about how menopause actually impacts us. And so what I would say to women is, we know that that's the ground roots of what we're looking for if you're talking about weight gain. And when you say that nothing's changed, well, yeah, a lot's changed actually. And a lot's changed that really impacts that ratio, that really makes that ratio of energy balance shift without you feeling like you've changed anything. So what does that look like pragmatically? Because I think that's what women want to know. Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, we may not put weight on, but we may change shape. And changing shape is pretty typical because our fat deposits start to land more on our stomach than our legs and our hips. We have a greater risk of having visceral fat, which is the fat that surrounds our organs. Visceral adiposity is pretty bad for our health if you have it in abundance. And we can also have subcutaneous fat, which is the wiggly jiggly fat that we've all got, right? So we start to change shape from more of a pear to an apple. That's going to happen because of our hormonal profile. If we look about our activity levels, if you're simply not moving as much as you used to, and chances are that's the case, if you're exhausted, if you're depressed, if your joints are aching, if you're time poor, a lot of midlife women are time poor, Ruby. We're juggling jobs and kids and aging parents and you name it, right? Trying to fit everything in to a day. Like if you feel like you're still active, but you actually take a step back and look and go, do you think I moved as much as I usually do? Or like if I compare myself to my 20s when I was never stopped and I had like say little kids running around, are you moving as much? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Just be honest about that. None of this is blame. None of this is looking to blame or shame anyone. It's just looking at this in a really pragmatic, practical way. The other thing is it's really important to know that our metabolism doesn't shift. And I know you've talked about this. Metabolism doesn't have any sort of real seismic shift at all until we're in our 60s, 70s. And then it's only sort of quite slow. It goes down by, I think, is it 0.6, 0.7? The Ponza study, I'm trying to remember. But yeah, it's very minimal. But when we think about the other side of the equation, which is the energy in, that's the food that we eat, we know that there's some shifts there. And I know that it's really hard to sort of like pass that. Like, am I eating more than I used to? Well, we know that estrogen impacts our relationship with ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin and leptin are our hunger hormones. Ghrelin's the thing that I always think ghrelin is the growly hormone that tells you you gotta eat, you gotta eat, you gotta eat. That's on all the time. It's like telling you you're hungry all the time. And leptin, which is produced in our fat cells, is the one that sends a neurotransmitter to the brain to say you're satisfied now. But it's a little bit out of whack, and so a lot of menopausal women will feel like they're constantly hungry and never satisfied. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock, because estrogen plays a complex dance with those hormones too. And so there's lots and lots of other things to take into account too. And it just means that the energy balance that we know is a fact and we can't argue with, those hurdles just become more complex. And I would end this by saying if it wasn't possible to lose weight in menopause, then women wouldn't lose weight in menopause, and they do. It's just not as easy as it used to be. It just requires a little bit more sophisticated approach to eating. Nothing needs to change radically, but maybe we need to sort of steer you in the different direction. Maybe are you eating enough protein? Are you satisfied? Are you having enough fiber? We can talk about the minutiae of this, but when all's said and done, if you're eating more than your body needs, then you will store that as fat. And we all have experienced this, right? I've gone through the whole thing. I'm 5 years into menopause now, and I have to tell you that I have to be a little bit more careful about my approach to food if I want to lose weight, if I want to keep in maintenance, right? I have to be very mindful, and a lot of women do.
Yeah. And that's actually the most important part. You need a more sophisticated approach when you are in perimenopause. You can't risk winging it anymore. You need a strategy, especially in your early 40s, because your early 40s, you could even be starting perimeno there because there is no set time frame for when it starts for you. It can range from 7 to 10 years. I'm pretty sure it says in the research, 7 to 10 years. So you need to be doing what you can now. If you're in your 30s listening to this, this is even more important for you. So many of us spend our lives chasing skinny, chasing small. We haven't even built up the reserves for muscle. We haven't even built up the lifestyle for, okay, we need to be eating more protein. We need to be eating more veggies. We need to create a lifestyle that facilitates. I have this thing of 75 hard. I don't want my 75 to be hard. I want my 75 to be easy. When I am 75, that is the 75 hard that you should all be aiming for. Do you want your 75 to be hard or to be easy? Because it all starts right now. No matter what age you are, you have the ability to change. So when the words 75 hard pop up, let that be your cue. How do I want my 75 hard to look? Do I want it to be 75 hard or 75 easy? Because the 75 hard challenge is not going to get you to a 75 easy. That's just going to keep you.
I know those type of 75 hard challenges are not for me, but we're all different. Some people need very rigid rules to be able to like stay on track or to get started. And I was always against that because it's not the way I work. It's not the way I like to coach people. But I also know that some people are a little bit more binary, and having like a stricter approach to it can actually help kickstart them. Personally, I'm about small changes gradually and really nailing the basics. And you know, the problem is, Ruby, a lot of people don't meet the basics. They don't meet the recommended movement exercise guidelines, which is, we know, is 150 minutes of moderate exercise a week, or 75 minutes vigorous, which is funny because we're talking about 75 hard, and then 2 strength training classes a week. And hardly anybody, I think it's like 90% of people, do not meet the recommended eating guidelines. And so people always like crap all over the eating guidelines of the governments, but most people don't eat to them. And if you ate to them, they're actually really quite good. And so I'm just all about, like, why are we overcomplicating things? Why are we looking for the magic pill? Why are we trying to find the latest like fitness thing when meeting the basic guidelines will actually put you in a really good position to be healthy? And the last thing I'm going to say on this, because it just feeds into what you said, and to finish off my point, you might put weight on, and is that such a big deal? If you're going to be 5 pounds heavier or 10 pounds heavier in menopause, is that the end of the world? You know, you didn't burn down an orphanage. Nobody hates you. Everyone still respects you. Maybe it's something that you've got to do the work to put your head around, but like, there's a part of me that wants to ask women to sort of lean into it a little bit and respect your body. Think to yourself, I think it was meant to do this. And then if you're still not happy, then start taking the small steps to try and, you know, address those. Get stronger, get fitter, lose weight if that's appropriate. But losing weight is not always the answer, is my point.
It can be a byproduct of just having a health-focused approach and having a habits-based approach. And I just quickly typed this into Google because I wanted to make sure of the percentage. But on average, there are 19 meals in an average month by someone eaten outside of the home. And home cooking is probably one of the greatest things that you can do for yourself. There are healthier options, yes, and people are busy, yes. It's like most of the meals that people choose at restaurants aren't the ones that facilitate a healthier life. So learning what to look for in these restaurant meals, especially as you're scarce on time. But these days, if you go into a supermarket, there are like protein-packed, higher fiber options in the freezer section. I love that section. And there is nothing wrong with those processed, quote unquote, meals if they help you eat in a healthier way. Finding what works for you, which is what you said with the rigid rules. Like, I think also with the way that my brain works with the ADHD and all that kind of stuff as well, I need rigid rules with my food as well, but I set them to work for me. Mine are, I need to meal prep and just stick to the same meals over and over again because I don't like the decision fatigue. Figure out what meals, figure out what rules serve you, because sometimes we do need rules to take away the thinking, to take away the guesswork, but it's not rules that are dictated by a challenge that is designed to make you fail and keep coming back for more and more and more. Create your own challenge. And you mentioned something as well before, which I think is important, and that's you need to normalize that the fat does shift to your midsection, but it doesn't mean that you can't act to keep within a healthy body fat percentage. And I think the other thing that's really important to accept is that as we age, we are going to lose collagen. We are going to lose elastin in our skin. So it isn't going to be the same tight look that you'll have in your 20s. And beating yourself up for the way that your body changes is never going to make you happy, because you can't change that. You cannot change the biological aging system, but you can change what aging looks like for you, because muscle is a youth hormone. Like, it is a youth hormone. It is a youth organ. Like, it is what makes you look younger than you are. Living a healthier lifestyle makes you look younger than you actually are. Getting in cardiovascular activity makes you look younger than you are. And you also mentioned that things will never work the same as they did in your 20s because your lifestyle is completely different now. Your stress levels, your sleep levels, you don't have that same oomph in the same way that you did in your 20s. Even though it might feel that way, it's in absolute terms the same. You're giving the same, I'm giving my best, but that on on a absolute level, sorry, in a relative level, it feels like it's maximum. But in the absolute sense, if you look back to your 20s, you had more recovery ability. You had a lot more power in everything that you do. But that's just the way our bodies change, and you can act to stay on top of it as much as you can to keep those reserves there. So
our body is a different vessel for sure, and I think we need to have more respect for it. There's nothing wrong with getting older, nothing. In fact, it's a privilege, right? And it really frustrates me that people are trying to fight that. I don't care about Botox and fillers. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that society doesn't deem us to be worthy if we get older and we get fatter and all of those things, and yet it's going to happen to most of us. And so, you know, we've got to block that noise out, and we've got to sort of just try and be as health focused as we can for our own particular needs, right? And I think that, you know, we've just lost sight of that a little bit, right? Because everyone wants, and the problem is with menopause is that all of the age-related things sort of seem to be accelerated a little bit. So it all comes at us a little bit more quickly. And I think that can be a little bit of a shock. And a lot of women go into a sort of grief about it, like the grief of our youth going. And I actually think that that's when the work happens, when you can start thinking about, but I'm so much more than just like losing my youth. I'm so much more as a person. And that's where the hard conversations need to happen. And for me, it means like I'm a little bit heavier than before. I've got more wrinkles than before, but I'm so much stronger than I've ever been. I'm fitter than I've ever been. And I've got more patience, and I'm calmer, and I feel like I have better boundaries. You know, there's so much more to me than just the extra 5 or 10 pound I might be carrying, right? And it's the same for every woman, but it's just that that's not offered to us when we look at what a 50-year-old woman should look like.
I think it is such an emotional thing for people to understand that you need to be accepting of where you are now in your journey and allow your goals to evolve with you. Otherwise, you're going to just keep clinging at straws that you're never going to grasp, because you're never going to go back to your 20-year-old body. And comparing yourself to your 20-year-old self or to 20-year-olds on Instagram isn't going to serve you in this phase of your life. But you can still be the best version of you right now. And I think that this will be a really important time to help people listening to this who are like realizing that they're going through perimenopause, that their hormones just aren't the same as they used to be, and their periods are coming a lot more infrequently, and maybe this is something that's now happening to them. How can they emotionally get themselves through this period of time and set themselves up for success with everything that we've been talking about, like with making sure that our metabolism stay fiery, as in doing the right things we need to do to get there, making sure our bodies stay strong, and avoiding the dreaded menopause belly that people say, but also accepting that there are going to be some shifts?
Well, I think a couple of things, right? So I think one of the hardest things, Ruby, is about perimenopause. And like you say, it can start in our early 30s, potentially into our 50s. And there's usually like a 7 to 10 year window, you correctly said. And a lot of women go into this still. Like we did a recent survey in Canada that showed that 54% of women weren't ready for perimenopause. They didn't even know what perimenopause was. So if we know that half of the population are going to go through this, half of them still don't know what to expect. That's the answer. We need to fill that knowledge gap. We need to give women education and tools, and the tools that they need are they need to be able to understand what's going to happen to them, to be able to advocate for themselves when speaking to their doctor, so that they don't get dismissed, so that they can push towards getting the treatment they need if that's appropriate to them, while in their own time trying to move the big rocks of health so that they're sort of future-proofing themselves, right? Because I got to say that through perimenopause, when women are trying to show up for exercise and they're exhausted and they only get a 10-minute workout, they almost feel like it's not worth it. And yet we know it is. And there's a study that came out 2 weeks ago that actually proved that those 10-minute small workouts actually do count. And it's sort of like a snowball effect, that everything you do moves the needle on your health markers. So even in the thick of it, when you don't feel like that walk outside for 30 minutes counted, it did. So just keep moving, just keep pushing forward, try and get as strong as humanly possible. Doesn't mean you might not have a shitty time. No one's going to guarantee that to you. But what we're saying is that your health really matters, your underlying health. And when you go through this transition to the other side, which is where I am, by the way, 5 years on, and it definitely changes and your body starts to calm down and it can live without those high levels of hormones because it's meant to. I don't care what anyone tells you. You can be on hormone therapy or not, but you still need to take care of your health. It's really important that you do because you're now in a different risk profile. And so you do the work beforehand. It's going to mean that those risk profiles stay low as you go into postmenopause. As you live that 30, 40 years in a postmenopausal state, you want to do that in the healthiest way possible.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that part with the hormones as well, because if people can understand just the physiological aspect of this as well. The first one is the fact that you do need to prioritize a lot more protein as you age in your meals, because there is a lower anabolic, your muscles take in less as you age. So you need to have more protein with your meals. And I feel like a huge thing that sets a lot of women back, which leads to this body composition that they do not like, is that they fall into this snacking habit or this stress eating habit. They just become grazers instead of prioritizing proper balanced meals with enough plants, with enough nourishing food and enough protein. Like aim for at least 35 grams if possible in a meal. That's going to keep you full. That's going to keep away the cravings. That's going to help your body composition. Those protein the protein doses and the plant doses are going to be one of your biggest weapons. And then you mentioned again, the health related things, like when estrogen falls, you need to be on top of your strength training, because with that, bone decreases. With that, muscle mass decreases. I mean, it's decreasing from when you turn 30. It's just that now it's exacerbated without having estrogen present. I'm really excited to talk about the next two parts. And with the strength training aside, which, to be honest, the biggest thing that needs to change with the strength training is the fact that you do need a lot more recovery. And maybe it's a better idea to make sure that your body is going through full ranges of motion, that you are keeping that mobility going, which you can get more mobile and more flexible, quote unquote, through your strength training. And it's stability within that, which is what you need. And moving through something that I implement with my perimeno ladies and meno ladies is more rotational movements, because you want to make sure that you have a strong core, and that if you go to pick something up in a weird position, you're not going to completely throw out your back or something. And having power movements within your training, because you lose type 2 muscle fibers as you age. So there are some elements that you want to make sure are within your strength training program, but you don't need to treat yourself like a delicate flower. You can do things.
A lot of women don't know how to do that, right? That's why it can be good to get a program, because we understand movement patterns, we understand functional movement and how important it is and how it's transferable. And especially as you go like into your 60s and 70s and 80s, it's completely transferable, because you have to be able to get up off the floor. The rotation and the anti-rotational movements are key. All of this single-legged movements, all of the balance, mobility, the whole thing. I honestly think women do so much better during perimenopause on a really structured strength training program that's progressive overload, which is how most decent coaches should program anyway, because it's just building that foundational strength, and hypertrophy is just so key. And one of the things that women often avoid is doing stuff like that, because they feel like they're going to get big and bulky, and really it's just we've got to, I hope that most people that listen to this don't believe that anymore, but it really is sort of one of those things that if you're doing a lot of HIIT training and you're exhausted at the end of it, then maybe dial that back and think about doing some more foundational strength movements and just getting that base level ready and fixed. It's just, sometimes I think that hard is not always best. Intelligent workouts are way better. So if you're pushing and you're working to near failure in a strength training class, you're going to get a lot more out of doing a 40-minute Tabata class, even though that isn't what HIIT training is. That's what women think HIIT training is, right? And you're going to get so much more out of a structured strength training program. And we've got data to show that too. And we've got data to show that in elderly people too. It's transformative at a cellular level.
Yeah, and recovery does play a bigger role when you're in your perimenopause as well, because you have less recoverability while you're going through these stages, especially if you're having a lot of like the hormonal on the emotional side and the stress in your life. Having it all compound together is a big stressor on you, and that eats at your recovery. So you really need to prioritize your recovery. And something that I want you to touch on in here as well is one of the biggest causes of quote unquote menobelly is the fact that your sleep is disturbed as you go through this period. And disturbed sleep that has flow-on effects for how you show up to your activity levels, to your movement levels, to the way that you strength train, to your motivation, to your food habits, your behavior. Like that sleep is probably one of the biggest driving factors, and acknowledging that and trying to do what you can to protect your sleep. So I might get you to talk on the recovery and the sleep aspect going into cardio.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, people will say, high cortisol equals high belly fat. And it's sort of a real simplification of like what happens, because they're two sort of different sort of systems anyway, fat storage and cortisol production and even insulin production. They're all interrelated, but having high cortisol doesn't mean you're going to store belly fat. And actually, interestingly enough, whenever I'm really stressed, I lose weight. And that's common too, right? Because what we know about chronic stress, or stress that sticks around and doesn't go away, as opposed to acute stress, which comes and goes, like with exercise, that actually helps you stabilize your stress load. What we know is that it can impact so many different systems in our body. It's horrible. And if you're chronically stressed, you need to look at fixing that first. You need to be looking at ways to manage your stress. And when it comes to sleep, I sort of put them in the same sort of buckets, because there's not one single person that doesn't sleep that doesn't feel stressed the next day. Like it's totally intertwined, and it's horrible. What we know about lack of sleep is that it can increase our food cravings. It messes up with the ghrelin leptin response. So that's why that sleep linked with weight gain, and it's because we become sort of less mindful over the foods that we tend to have more cravings. And when you get cravings, you don't crave broccoli. You crave fish and chips, and you crave chocolate, and you crave all of the fun carbs that we should be able to eat, but in moderation, not as the primary food source. And so I'm really keen for women to focus on those elements. So improved sleep hygiene, we know works. We know that insomnia is a massive symptom when it comes to perimenopause. Some women find hormone therapy really helps with that, improving their sleep. So if you're someone that's a candidate for hormone therapy and you've got insomnia because of perimenopause, definitely have that conversation. We think it's the progesterone sort of leg of it that is more of a calming, it facilitates a calming response. So a lot of women take progesterone on an evening, and it can help with their sleep, falling asleep and then not waking up, right? And if you've got hot flashes that make you wake up in the night, then estrogen therapy, which is, your hormone therapy, can help with the hot flashes and night sweats. And so that might help improve your sleep. But then regular sleep hygiene, which I won't go through, but the cold, dark rooms and getting off your devices before bed, but also consider CBTI. TI is a known and proven method for improving your sleep. What's really interesting is all of these things, probably not including the hormone therapy, but the lifestyle interventions take months and months and months to work. And so people might try them for a couple of weeks and go, oh, well, I've been going to bed at the same time every night. I'm waking up at the same time and getting out of bed at the same time, but my sleep hasn't improved. Well, don't stop. Just keep doing it, because it's the repetition, it's the behavioral change that takes time to kick in and change your circadian rhythm. And then when it comes to managing your stresses, really think of ways that you can actually de-stress and calm the fuck down. But what does that look like? It might be mindfulness training. You might need to go and speak to a professional counselor to do some CBT or some other mindfulness training. Go for more walks, go outside, do lots of big belly breaths when you're in a stressful situation. There's tons of ways to manage our stresses, and we don't have to go through them all now. But for me, if those two things are not on, they're completely off kilter, then none of the other stuff's going to work. You cannot work out when you're in a chronically stressed state because you will never, ever recover. You need to be able to work out so your body feels optimal, it's fueled, it's rested, and then you work it out hard, and then you prioritize the rest afterwards, right? You make sure that your body recovers adequately. Because over time, your body's going to respond so much better to that, right? You don't have to constantly go to the gym every day to see results. You don't have to go to the gym every day to see health improvements. All of these things, you've got to find that balance, right? So, and perimenopause seems to be the time that's more important, and it's because of the fluctuation of the hormones. You sort of don't always know how you're going to feel. Some days you might be chronically tired or depressed, and other days you might feel amazing. And I would just say, listen to your body and work with that. Like if you wake up feeling exhausted, I'm going to suggest that's the day you don't do a massive workout. That's the day that you go for a nice walk, or you do some yoga, or you do some biomechanics with your personal trainer. You just don't have to always go for that 10 out of 10 workout.
You mentioned the hormone influences and that you can never really tell what it's like on any given day. And before I move into the cardio section, I feel like it's really important to touch on body image here as well, in that if you're going to have crappy digestion at parts of your perimenopause fluctuations, because the hormone fluctuations lead to constipation. It can even lead to diarrhea sometimes, but mostly constipation. It can lead to more bloating. It can lead to some random food intolerances. And when that is happening inside of your body, you are not going to feel comfortable within yourself. You might feel bigger, you might feel fluffier. And if you haven't done the body image work before, this period of time is only going to be more enhanced. So don't just say, I'm going to lose the weight first, and then I'm going to work on my body image. No. Whatever age you are now, you need to start working on that and starting to accept yourself through it and finding something that gives you purpose through your strength training. And this is what I'm so huge about, because once you focus on health, your mental health, I was going to say your mindset and mental health, and start creating a life that you actually love and looking to these other values, which, if you focused on trying to shrink your body your whole life, you probably had your life just completely disappear around you because you were so focused on your body. Now is the time to start including your life into your life. Live the life so you can start to flourish in this period of time. Otherwise, you are only going to be more hard on yourself. When life is out of control and when you don't have anything that gives you purpose or satisfaction, you are going to turn to your body, and it's not going to be a fun time. You are only going to end up in a worse place. That is just something I had to get out there because it's a huge passion, and you just reminded me that I need to.
It's worth mentioning as well that we know that disordered eating and body dysmorphia increases during the menopause phase. And it sort of makes sense if you think about it being the opposite of puberty. These are big changes that we go through at both ends, and there's a lot of disordered eating and eating disorders, in fact, during puberty, and there's an increase of those through menopause. And so it's hard for women, right? And so I think that, if you're someone that's struggled with disordered eating throughout their life and it really does get worse through perimenopause, you have to go and work with a dietitian or a therapist. Do the work, because it's a lot to deal with, and you can't just say to yourself, you're going to be fine, because there's a lot to deal with. And I just think that it's really important to know that there's professionals out there that can help you.
Yeah, my perimenopausal ladies, the ones that have made the greatest changes with that history of eating, are ones that are currently working with either a somatic therapist that does somatic work, or an actual therapist. So I highly recommend getting yourself to one of those people and then working with a nutritionist or with a health professional. But that therapy is going to be so beneficial in helping you connect to your body and work through whatever it is that you're struggling with. But now the myths around cardio, which is probably one of the most recent things I spoke to you about. And there is this perpetual bashing on zone 2 and elongated, long, steady state training for women, especially as they age, which I think is, when I speak on it, I say this is ridiculous because estrogen is important. I mean, estrogen is important for heart health. You lose estrogen, heart health decreases. Zone 2 improves that. It's not saying go and run a mile, go and run a marathon every single day and then don't feed it and then cut down carbs and then make sure that you're in a recovery debt. No. You need to make sure that everything is planned into, you need to be recovering. You need to be feeding it. Don't cut your carbs and deprive yourself of what your body needs to actually flourish. You want it all to work together. So let's kind of touch into the myths around cardio and zone 2 and people saying that it's best to just go hard and do this Tabata HIIT session, which you perfectly alluded to isn't actually HIIT. And when people ask me about, but X on Instagram says that you should be doing the sprint stuff versus the zone 2, it's like, but most women don't actually do sprint intervals. They just do random intensity with random periods of rest, but it's not the actual benefit from that, which you actually get from strength training anyway, because that is high intensity. And then you have the supplement, which you can recover from in this period of time.
So yeah, like I think what's happened is because of social media, and sound bites, I think we're sort of majoring in the minors, right? That's what's happened. And so it drives me a little bit crazy because these sound bites get confusing. And if you don't look deeper into the context of them, it can make women be like floundering. And so, yeah, I've heard zone 2 is not appropriate for menopausal women as well. And it doesn't make any sense at all. What I would say in defense of the person that sort of said this, and I don't think it's worth naming names, it doesn't really matter, is that the person who does this and studies athletic women, studies high-end professional athletic women. And so these are women that move more than the average bear. These are women that actually their job is to train. Their job is to be the prime athletes. And so when you're working with that subset of a population, you have to be able to translate that information to general population. And I put myself in the general population, and you probably do too. I mean, I work out and everything, but my job isn't a professional athlete. Most women don't even know what zone 2 is. Zone 2 is just having your heart rate in a 70, 80% zone. And it would be like going for a walk where you're a little bit out of breath. And you're doing it and it falls within the recommended guidelines from the government of 150 minutes a week, which is 20 minutes a day. So being out of breath, so I would just say, like, if you're going for a walk with your friend and she talks and you have to sort of recover a little bit, and then you talk, it's like that type of level. But like, if to say that has no health benefit doesn't make a dot of sense. So every single day, I would say go and try and find some movement in that zone 2. If it's doing your Zumba class, if it's going for a relaxed swim or bike ride, if it's going for a brisk walk, A classes zone 2 activities, and they improve your cardiovascular output. They improve tons of different markers. They've been shown to reduce LDL and visceral fat. Like, honestly, our mental health, our depression, anxiety, I could spend all day listing the benefits of zone 2 movement for your overall health. I think what the person is trying to say is that if you had an optimal life where you could only do certain things, it would be that you worked out 3 to 4 times a week in a progressive overload strength training class, 45 minutes class. So you're doing your strength training, and the best way to hit your anaerobic threshold, so that's when you're working out without oxygen, is to do a 10-minute HIIT class or a 5-minute sit class, which is your sprint training. And that idea to most women is not tangible. And so I'll sort of expand on that a little bit. If you're going to, say, F45 or Orange Theory, or I don't know if you have them in Australia, but the type of like fitness boot camps, that's not a HIIT class. You might get out of breath, and that's great. And that's what we're looking for, right? That's really good for your cardiovascular health. But real HIIT training is always done for a very short period of time. Like, we're talking 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Full out. You can't talk, you can barely breathe. The whole point is you can't breathe. It's anaerobic without oxygen. and then you have a recovery that's equal to or more than that. So if, say, you did a 30-second sprint, you would do a 1 minute recovery, and you might do that 5 times, and that's it, right? That's not the same as going to F45. And so what I would say, all that being said, is to say that zone 2 is not appropriate doesn't make a dot of sense. It's in the recommended guidelines. We have oodles and oodles and oodles of data to show how important it is. And HIIT training might move the needle on that a little bit, but it's not going to be the big needle that you think it is. It really isn't. It's just a very, very efficient way of working out. So if you're already in the gym and you're doing a 45-minute workout, you might have a little bit left in the tank, and you might be able to jump on a treadmill and do like a 5-minute, 6-minute, 7-minute HIIT training, and it's really good for you. But for most people, I wonder how accessible that is, right? And so I think that what I would say is, if you see these sound bites on social media, just dig a bit deeper and just say, well, what do you mean it has no benefits? We know it has benefits. What are you really trying to say? Because I know the person you're talking about, who's a respected scientist, and I just think there's a nuance missing often in the conversation that doesn't get translated down to the people that really would benefit from it. And it's not the 10% of the athletes that follow these rules religiously. It's the 90% of the rest of the population that simply don't move enough.
And I do want to add on that as well, when they are doing this testing data, of course you're going to be able to do sprint interval trainings when you're having someone friggin' whip you like a horse to get a sprint done. And like you mentioned, the last time that I had HIIT done, it was 30 seconds on and 3 minutes off. And that is the thing. It's just like these people in these interventions, also the people watching the intervention, to push them that hard to get the sprint interval out of it. And it's a short-term intervention, not a long-term one. And
yeah, like, just for people who don't know, like, you do it in a lab setting, you're wearing an oxygen mask, you've got all your heart is all like taped up, you know, they're monitoring everything, and they've got people telling you to run harder, and then they're watching your recovery and they're monitoring your recovery. And it really is a great way to train. If you can work at 95% to 100, of your max heart rate, and then you can recover down to 60-70% in 3 minutes, that's a really great way to show your variability of your heart rate, and it's working well. And so it's very hard to do that yourself. I do HIIT training maybe twice a week, Ruby. I know I'm a bit of a slacker on it. I know I'm like, yeah, I might not run as fast today. And, you know, it's really hard to do this appropriate to the protocol all the time, you know, and probably I get more out of the walk to the gym and the walk back, I'm saying. For me.
That's actually a really good point there as well, because you might want to get this cardio over and done with in a HIIT session, but that isn't what quote unquote boosts your metabolism. Because if you're not active the rest of the day, you don't burn the most calories in the gym, which is probably what most people are trying to do HIIT interval training for. Do cardio for the health benefits of it, not the fat loss benefits of it, and look to your lifestyle for the rest. And yes, athletic people, they actually fuel, they recover, they have a lifestyle that facilitates all of this kind of stuff. Most of us don't. I'm a health professional, and even I don't, because I'm doing my adulting and I'm not paid to be an athlete. I'm paid to be a coach, and that is my full-time job. It's just like you're a mother, you're a businesswoman, you're all these things. You're not an athlete that has people helping you with other things.
No, I squeeze my 1 hour in every day, and I'm like, can I do it now? And you know, like, we're all the same, and that goes down to that whole we all have the same 24 hours in the day bullshit, that we've just got to stop that mentality. So long story short, because I know we both talk a lot, let's just encourage people to move more. When you talk about your total daily energy expenditure, what Ruby was talking about is like the amount of calories you burn every day. The NEAT portion of that, the non-exercise portion of that, uses up some of the lion's share of your calories. And so all that being said, your workout will help improve your health, your body composition, your cardiovascular output. But if you want to burn more calories, move more. Literally get up, do more stairs, walk around more, go and meet your friend for a coffee. Like, just get up and move.
I love that. And I think it'll be silly not to mention HRT on a menopause podcast. And we were talking before about symptoms like hot flashes, and then you mentioned estrogen, and then sleep, and you mentioned progesterone, and then there are people that struggle with libido or dryness in areas, and that might come down to testosterone then. And then let's just bubble this into HRT. And I do know that Jen Gunter also promotes this in terms of when you get to this perimenopause stage of life, it's not blood tests per se that determine like hormone replacement therapy candidateness. It's going based off symptoms. And yes, the blood tests then can help figure out where your hormones fall with the doses that you get prescribed and things around that. But I also want you to touch on the myths that are around all of this. Like I just saw a recent one with artificial hormones being bad in your body and you'll just gain weight when you stop them, which just so you know, you don't need to stop them. You can stay on them. It's been proven to be safe. The only time it's not is when you start them like 10 years into your menopause journey versus at the outset. So let's further on our last podcast and talk about HRT, where it plays a role, when to seek help, how to seek help, going based off symptoms versus fiddling around with blood tests in random periods of a already erratic hormone cycle, which doesn't work.
So it's really important for everyone listening to know that, like, when we're talking about this isn't our opinion and we're not medical doctors, and that I try and do a really good job of taking the medical guidelines and the medical consensus and just making it human, because it's sometimes a little bit complex to understand. And so menopause hormone therapy is the name for hormone replacement therapy. We shouldn't be calling it hormone replacement therapy. It's menopause hormone therapy. And it's a lot less of a lower dose than the birth control pill. And it's indicated for symptom management only. Right? It's not meant to be taken as a preventative measure to prevent cardiovascular disease or Alzheimer's or any of those things, because there's not enough data yet. Maybe they will be to indicate it for that. So if you're a woman over 45 years old and you are struggling with, well, if you're a woman at any age, in your late 30s onwards, who is struggling with one or more symptoms of menopause, you should be able to go to your doctor and ask for something to give you relief, right? That's the whole point of this. The reason that they do not give blood tests when you go to the doctor over the age of 45 is because our hormones fluctuate on the hour, on the minute. So if they were to take one at 9 o'clock in the morning and at 6 o'clock at night, they would likely be very different. And so it may come back saying that your estrogen and progesterone are normal when things aren't normal for you. And so the doctor is supposed to be able to help you based on symptoms alone. So I would say to women that if you're starting to struggle with menopause, start to keep a diary, just a simple diary, like a tick box, or use an app that looks at the big picture of your symptoms. Yes, you've been struggling with night sweats and hot flashes. If you want to speak to your doctor about hormone therapy, it's indicated for hot flashes, night sweats, the genitourinary symptoms of menopause, which is the vaginal dryness, the incontinence, the painful sex, all of those things. It's indicated for help with osteoporosis if you are a candidate for that, and if you are somebody who goes into early menopause, because if you go completely into early menopause under the age of 45, then you may be at a higher risk of osteoporosis. And so sometimes it's indicated for that up until the age of menopause. And so when you see people saying it's, I want to take it because I want to prevent Alzheimer's, I want to prevent obesity or being insulin resistant, it's not indicated for that at all. Lifestyle interventions are, though. That's what all of the organizations recommend. You can go on within 10 years of your last period. So if your last period was 51, you can go onto it up to the age of 61. Anything sort of outside of that 10-year window, you would have to just make sure nothing else was wrong. That's all. The only reason they say that is because you may be at higher risk for other things, and they would need to do an evaluation. You can go on hormone therapy in perimenopause and menopause. Some women actually get turned away from their doctors saying, well, you're not in menopause yet, so you can't have it. And that doesn't make a ton of sense when most women have symptoms in perimenopause. Hormone therapy is not indicated for all women. Not every woman can take it. Not every woman does well on it. And some women never want to take it. And so it's just really important to treat hormone therapy in the conversation as another tool to the toolkit but know that it's not a panacea, that, you know, you should be able to get relief from your symptoms. If you can't take it, if it doesn't work for you, there are non-hormonal pharmaceuticals that you can take too. So there's a big array of these. And in Australia, the Australasian Menopause Society is a really great resource for women, and I definitely recommend you go over there. Prescription guidelines are on there, how to talk to your doctor. Like, just go to your doctor armed with information, with your symptoms, talk to them, and just ask to be considered for hormone therapy. And if you can't be considered for it, you know, ask why. Right? Because there are clear indications who can and can't have it. And as far as how long you need to go on it for, it really is a conversation between you and your doctor. There's no indication that you need to come off if you don't want to. And the transdermal hormone therapy is considered to be safer because it goes through the skin and into the bloodstream that way, and it bypasses the liver, whereas oral medication goes through the liver. But really, that shouldn't be an issue for most women anyway, unless they've had a history of blood clots. And so, to me, I just think that menopause should be talked about with hormone therapy in the picture, but menopause doesn't mean you have to go on hormone therapy. And I think that's a really important part of the conversation. It's just that a lot of women try and have the conversation with their doctor and they don't get very far with them.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad because so many people get dismissed or just shoved into antidepressants or anxiety meds when it's just like, yeah, but have you ever stopped to think that maybe it's the hormones that are causing this switch? Especially if you have anxiety in your history and you don't have estrogen, it really does exacerbate the symptoms. And I see it more often than you think. So having that discussion.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, like, I'm trying to not like crap all over doctors, because one of the things is we know is that they don't get training in menopause. And so if you go to them and they're trying to help you and you present with anxiety or depression and they don't know how to join those dots because they've never had the training, chances are they're going to treat you for the anxiety and the depression, because they typically, almost all doctors want to help their patients, right? And so I just think that we've got to the stage where all of these women are now saying, you know, we realize that we've been ignored and we want to be heard. And I think if it's approached in the right way, that doctors will listen.
Yeah. I love the way that you sum that up as well. It's, if you're not getting the answers that you want from your doctor, find someone else or get a referral to a gynecologist, to an endocrinologist, do your research online and take in the facts to see your doctor. But before I ask you my wrapping up question, I want to just quickly highlight a quick thing, which I was going to get Amanda to talk on, but I just want to do it as a snippet just so you take it with you. And that's, be really careful in this stage of your life with your alcohol intake more than anything, because number one, it is going to exacerbate your hot flushes. Number two, it can lead to even more fat gain for the fact that it leads to less quality sleep. You're already getting less quality sleep. You're already trying to deal with stress. Trying to numb it with alcohol does not make it better. Trying to work your way through things or whatever it is that's your filler with alcohol, it's only going to exacerbate the symptoms. It's going to make it harder for you to stick to your plan, and it's adding in unnecessary calories that should, in this period of time, really be going to things that help you, like more protein, like more plants. And we don't tolerate or bypass, eliminate, whatever, alcohol the same as we age. Our bodies do that at a slower rate. So it's really important to take that away with you. But I want...
And Ruby, it's worth saying that the tolerance changes for sure, right? Women find that they just simply can't drink like they used to, even if they want to. But there are new guidelines in Australia and in Canada where I am. And the new guidelines are 2 units of alcohol per week. It used to be 1 per day, and now it's 2 units per week. And anything over that is increases your risk of 8 different types of cancer. And so it's like, but I also want to put that into perspective. Risk is risk. So if it's doubling your chances of cancer, but your risk profile is like 0.00001 and it changes it to 0.00002, it's okay. But if you're not exercising, if you're smoking, if you're overweight, if you're eating terribly, then, and you're still drinking, the new guidelines are really, really appropriate to you. So I would just look into that.
Thank you for adding that on. That's going to be really important for you guys to take that. 2 units a week. And just so you know, a unit is not a full freaking 24 wine glass. There's like 2 units in one of those wine glasses. They're huge. But the wrapping up question, what advice can women take away from this who feel discouraged from not only their bodies changing, but just this shift in their life where things just don't feel the same, where they're not in the mood, they feel like they're not seeing changes. Life in itself is feeling really freaking hard and they're having setbacks. Work is hard. There's stress everywhere. What are some things they can take away to stay focused and to better listen to and understand their bodies during this time of change?
I'd sort of keep it quite simple, Ruby, because I sort of went through this whole journey myself. I went from basically being bedridden to being back to normal again, right? And it was a long period of a lot of years. And I would just say to women, it's called the menopause transition for a reason. This isn't here to stay. And I know when I would wake up in the morning and look at myself in the mirror, I used to dread the day and think, is it just going to be crap? Is this just going to be my life from now on? And I sort of want to reassure women that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not a cave, and you just need to keep looking forward and doing the best you can every day, knowing that this isn't going to be forever.
It's not going to be forever. Just something to keep in mind, because whenever you're in a tough moment, just like when we were in the lockdowns, it felt like it was going on forever. But now it's been like 3-4 years since then. Time will pass. It's just hard right now, and that's okay. And if you want to read more of Amanda's experience with this and the way that she helps people and just her wise words, amandathebe.com/book. Her book, Menopause. I said this wrong on the last damn podcast. I'm going to nail it this time.
No, you can do it. I believe in you, Ruby.
Menopocalypse. Got it. I got it. So her book, Menopocalypse, is all about how you can thrive in menopause and the things that she noticed and the way that she worked through her menopausal symptoms. I highly recommend reading this book because it speaks to your level. It speaks to your emotions. It is not some weird abstract text from the heavens of research. It is literally a human speaking to a human, bringing research into human levels, emotion levels, so that you can better make your way through this period of time. I highly, highly recommend her book.
Thanks, Ruby. Thank you. That's awesome.
The first link in the show notes below, and that link will lead you to her Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and all that kind of stuff as well. But is there anything else that you want to add on to the end of this?
No, that's great. I've really enjoyed speaking to you today, Ruby.
Really enjoyed speaking to you too, and I'm so happy we got Amanda back on today. And if you didn't listen to her last podcast, I highly recommend you go check that out as well. But take some notes from this, reach out to Amanda, go follow her on Instagram and let her know if it touched you in any way, tag us in it. But she shares a lot of factual things in her stories as well. And it doesn't have to be as hard as social media makes it out to be. It's just a matter of acceptance, listening to our bodies and doing the same things that we've done before, just with more intent. And by the same things we've done before, I mean the right things, not the F45.
Okay, take care. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.